this is now again. This is I hinted at this earlier in the show. That there's a little something interesting that went down this past weekend. Um, that actually it relates to something I talked about on this show 2 weeks ago. And if you want to go back, I mean this is the show that actually had the successful podcast. I believe hopefully we have no crashes or whatever, and we should have today's show podcasted and put up on the Facebook page either later tonight or tomorrow. But nevertheless, if you want to go back, I believe it's late, right before the first break. I was talking about Marcus Smart. Not Maxwell Smart, Agent 86 from the old series Get Smart, the control agency, but no, Marcus Smart, and how he had he shoved a fan of the other team in a college basketball game that that had some not so nice things to say to him. And again, if you remember, I said, like, it's like road rage when somebody has not so nice things to say, or flicks you off on the road, or jams on the horn. This is, I said, like, take it like that. Like, he's got to learn to just be ambivalent towards it, and know that in his case, he made a nice defensive play, and not just be ambivalent towards it. Now, where I'm going with this is that I refer to this as the right of way parking incident that happened Saturday. I work a lot, definitely a lot during the weekends at Red Lobster, why missing to help pay for school and whatever else, and save money. But nevertheless, I get done at the gym, and I pull into the parking lot at Red Lobster. The place is it's like 2 o'clock, but it's on a wait. I believe this was Saturday afternoon. Yes, and I'm coming to one of the only open spots that I see, and it's to my right. So essentially, before I mention anything else, I see the spot. Now, if I want that spot, I have the right of way and I can take it. Now there's another car who essentially to the left, who is essentially, they're a little further away from the spot, and no signal, no turn signal, and I'm a guy who wish that everybody lived by turn signals, because it just makes things so much more organized, in driving, and makes things easier for everybody. Parking spots, taking parking spots, I believe, is the way to go here too with it. The turn signal is the way to go. So we're approaching this spot at the same time, but again, I'm on the right side. The parking spot is closer to me. I have the right of way. I turn into the spot, and all of a sudden I get a horn, and I'm thinking, like, I had like a reaction, like wait, what? They just beat the horn at me? Like, what's why'd they beat the horn? So no more than 10 seconds later, they find a parking spot. They even take the time to back into the spot. It's only about 30 feet away. And now where they're parked, I'm like between, where they would walk to get to the entrance of the restaurant. And I see them get out. The parents get out of the car. And I know what's. I kind of have an idea what's coming here.
Go ahead, Hager.
Just like how's it gonna be said or whatever. But the thing is, I already know how I'm gonna react. If and this is the beauty of what I mentioned 2 weeks ago on this show, what I talked about in this situation. They first the woman comes over, and she she gives me a cliche profanity. Um, she's a little brief, and then the dad comes over, and he has more to say. He has more profanity to say, that obviously cannot be mentioned on this program, or on any radio program for that matter. Um, but again, how do you think I just sat there ambivalently. Um, the doors were locked, but obviously they didn't. Nobody had any courage or you know what I mean. They didn't have the desire to do that. They were, and if they did, that'd be crossing a whole nother line where there arises another issue. But the dad has more to say, and he even says, like, what is he like? He says, like, oh, we got your license plate number or whatever. Now, first of all, I'm still as I mentioned last week on the show. I'm getting my transmission fixed on my actual car. I was borrowing my mom's car that day, and but but what do you? Okay, you have my license plate number. What are you gonna do? You're gonna call the cops and complain? You're like, oh, so and so took my parking spot in the Red Lobster, like is that not a flimsy argument or what? I mean, it's okay. I don't know what you're gonna really need my license or this license plate number for, especially when nothing wrong was really done here. But the kind of the heartbreaking thing about this story is that the parents are saying these things in front of a trio of young children. Now I'm 22 years old, and if you combine the ages of these three children, they're probably a few years younger if you combine all three of their ages. I mean, probably one or two of them was preschool age. I didn't totally, but I mean, to me, that's the sad thing about the story. If there's anything to be said about here, but again, I sat there and I didn't care. Nothing bothered me. Name calling, especially that profane, it's not going to bother me. And for anybody out there listening who gets found in a similar situation, like Marcus Smart a couple weeks ago, how I mentioned on the court or whatever, it's a similar situation when it comes to taking that kind of verbal abuse. Now, first of all, I mean, I don't resort to name calling in a situation. If I have a beef or something, I want to have an intelligible conversation about it. With not with name calling, let alone profane name calling that gets voiced in front of young children that unfortunately are having this horrible example casted right in front of them. But again, I sat there, calm, collected. I just nodded, like with a slight, like not like smirk, but just like this is not getting under my grill at all, kind of thing. I think it's funny. I think back to when I was a little kid playing soccer, and my dad was the coach, and he'll get a kick out of this, but there was this one coach that I remember we faced his team a couple times, and in front of kids, little kids playing soccer on a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, this coach dropped some profanities on him for whatever reason. And I remember how my dad would just kind of like, stand there ambivalently, not be offended by it and laugh at it. And I just, I think back to things like that, and that's how I react. It's kind of like how I felt in this situation. Like first of all, this guy apparently this couple doesn't know the right of way, concept when it comes to driving, which again, that's another moral of this story. But clearly, I know I'm not the idiot here, if there's any idiots. So, but furthermore, I guess they go into the restaurant, and I guess they decide that they don't want to wait for a table, because then a minute later they walk back to their car and they drive away. And, and I think that's fortunate, because if you're going to have that much of a short fuse and, be that, I mean, fed up in something that you don't need to be fed up about, I don't think you should be out in public eating in the first place.
I agree.
I mean, you go out to have a good time. And obviously they're kids, and I mean, I don't know if that's what they were out to do, if something like that was going to bother them that much. And I mean, again, it was all for nothing. It was all that for nothing. I mean, it was they drive away. Ultimately, they do not partake in dinner or lunch or lupper. I don't know, it was mid-afternoon, whatever you want to call it, at Red Lobster. So, but with that kind of attitude that was projected towards me, and that I'm glad that they didn't eat there, because I'm sure that they would have driven at least a server or somebody crazy there, and so that's fortunate.